If only they knew, the quiet blind girl in the corner was no ordinary student. She was a hidden genius, a master of numbers. But in a world that saw only her blindness, her brilliance remained invisible. But behind those closed eyes lived a mind sharper than the finest blade, a girl who could see the world in numbers, equations, and patterns no one else could imagine. Chika walked slowly along the dusty red road of her village, the tip of her cane tapping softly against the uneven ground. The morning sun burned gently on her skin, while goats bleated in the distance and women balanced baskets on their heads. Children paused their games to stare. Adults shook their heads and whispered. "Poor girl," they murmured, "what future could she possibly have?" But Chika moved with quiet grace. Though her eyes could not see the world, her heart saw it more deeply than most. Behind her calm face lived a brilliance no one could yet imagine. In the classroom, she sat silently in the corner, listening to every word. The room grew still when she entered, not because she was feared, but because she was pitied. To them, blindness was weakness. To Chika, it was something else entirely. Chika's school was a small block building with cracked walls and wooden benches. She sat at the very back. The chalk squeaked on the blackboard as Mr. Okoro, her teacher, wrote equations for the class. The other children scribbled furiously, but Chika could not see the board. "Why does she bother coming?" some children whispered. "She cannot even see the numbers." Yet Chika did not need her eyes. She listened to Mr. Okoro's tone, the rhythm of his speech, and felt numbers come alive. She counted the footsteps of her classmates, memorized the sound of chalk strokes, and stored every lesson in perfect order in her mind. When others played during break, Chika remained behind, tracing her fingers gently over the raised dots of her braille book. Each touch opened a world invisible to the rest. One day, Mr. Okoro read aloud a long sequence of numbers. Before he could repeat them, Chika recited the entire set back, flawlessly. The class fell silent. How could she remember that, a boy muttered. But Chika wasn't just remembering. She was seeing the numbers inside her mind. They floated like bright stars in a night sky, arranging themselves into patterns only she understood. Later, when asked to multiply large numbers, she answered faster than anyone. She needed no paper, no board, her mind was her slate. Her blindness had sharpened her memory, her focus, her vision. Yet she kept her secret. To the world, she was still the poor blind girl. But in silence, she was already a mathematician. One afternoon, Mr. Okoro called Chika aside. His voice trembled with excitement. "Chika, would you like to join the school mathematics competition?" When the news spread, laughter echoed through the village. A blind girl competing in mathematics. Impossible. Parents shook their heads. Students giggled. Some openly mocked her. She cannot even see the questions. But Chika remained calm. On the day of the competition, she walked into the hall, her cane tapping against the tiled floor. The murmurs grew louder. Judges raised eyebrows. Students whispered. She sat quietly at her desk, composed and ready. The girl they had dismissed was about to change everything. The first question was read aloud. Students bent over their papers. Chika sat perfectly still, her mind racing. Within seconds, she spoke the answer. "Correct," the judge announced. Another question. Again, she answered. Faster than anyone. The judges leaned forward. The students who mocked her stared with wide eyes. The whispers turned into stunned silence. Chika answered every question, calm and steady. Where others stumbled, she soared. The blind girl was outshining them all. When the final bell rang, the hall was silent. Then came the applause. Soft at first, then louder, until the room shook with clapping. Chika had won. Mr. Okoro wiped tears from his eyes. "I always knew you were special," he whispered. The same classmates who mocked her now looked at her in awe. Parents who doubted her now bowed their heads in respect. For the first time, they saw not blindness, but brilliance. News traveled fast. The story of the blind girl who conquered mathematics spread beyond the village. Universities in the city invited her. Professors tested her mind and found it unmatched. She solved problems seasoned mathematicians struggled with. Entire formulas lived inside her head. To them, she was a wonder. To her, it was natural. Chika was no longer just the blind girl. She was the genius who changed how people saw ability. But Chika did not keep her gift for herself. She returned to her village. She taught farmers how to calculate harvest yields. She showed merchants how to balance accounts. She even worked with engineers to design better irrigation systems. Her knowledge became a blessing for everyone. The same people who once whispered in pity now gathered eagerly to learn from her. Blindness had never stopped her vision. Her vision was to uplift others. Soon, Chika became more than a mathematician. She became a symbol of hope. Children with disabilities looked up to her, dreaming bigger. Parents told their children her story. Communities began to see ability where they once saw limitation. Her journey became proof that true greatness is not defined by what the eyes can see, but by the strength of the mind and the courage of the heart. At the university, Chika is surrounded by brilliant minds, but not everyone believes she belongs. Some professors doubt her abilities, others worry about how she will keep up. Classmates whisper behind her back. She struggles to navigate lecture halls filled with hundreds of students, sometimes missing notes, sometimes excluded from study groups. But Chika refuses to bow to pity. She adapts. With her extraordinary memory and sharp intuition, she turns every lecture into patterns of sound and rhythm. She records voices, recalls entire textbooks word for word, and astonishes professors with her recall. When the exams come, she doesn't just pass, she outshines. Her name begins to spread in academic circles. Not as the blind girl who tried, but as the genius who cannot be stopped. But her journey is not without storms. During her second year, Chika enters a national mathematics Olympiad. The organizers almost disqualify her, claiming their system isn't equipped for blind participants. She is devastated but fights back. With the support of her mentor, Mr. Ode, and a small group of allies, she petitions the organizers. For weeks, she is mocked. Why fight? You won't win anyway. But she persists, and finally, she is allowed in. On competition day, the audience waits in silence. And when the results are announced, she takes first place, by a wide margin. What was meant to exclude her becomes the moment that redefines her. Fame comes quickly. Invitations pour in from across Africa and beyond. But fame is a double-edged sword. Chika longs to be just a student, to laugh with friends, to enjoy youth. Instead, she is constantly pulled between studies, interviews, and expectations. At times, she breaks down in silence, alone in her dormitory. The pressure of carrying not only her dreams but also the hopes of her community weighs heavily. She wonders, what if I fail them? What if I am only human after all? But each time doubt creeps in, she remembers her beginnings on that dusty village road. And she rises again. Chika decides her gift must not remain locked in academic circles. She returns often to her village during holidays. She advises farmers on how to calculate crop yields, helps women in the market balance accounts, and teaches children under a mango tree how to play with numbers like friends. She is no longer just the blind girl people pitied, she is the mind that helps everyone rise. Her blindness does not stop her vision, it sharpens it. By her final year at university, Chika is invited to speak at international conferences. She travels to cities she cannot see, but she feels their heartbeat through sound and touch. On one stage, she declares, "Blindness is not the absence of vision. True blindness is when the world refuses to see the potential within us." The hall erupts in applause. She becomes more than a mathematician, she becomes a voice for millions of children with disabilities across Africa. Chika establishes a foundation to support blind and disabled children. She builds learning centers where Braille math books are provided, and where teachers are trained to see potential instead of limits. Children who once hid in silence now gather with confidence, inspired by her journey. One young boy tells her, "Because of you, I want to be an engineer." Another girl whispers, "Because of you, I am no longer afraid." Chika smiles. Her life has become more than her story, it has become a seed planted in many others. As Chika walks once more on the dusty village road where her story began, she smiles peacefully. She cannot see the sun, but she feels its warmth. She cannot see the faces, but she feels the love. Her voice narrates,
"I could not see the world, yet I understood it more deeply than most. True vision comes not from the eyes, but from the mind and the heart. Once, they pitied me. Now, they know me. And now, the world sees what I have always seen."